I made a recipe for every Baldur's Gate 3 voice actor coming to FanX Salt Lake City, and this is how it went. First on the list are Laezel's Dragonfire Hot Wings with Githyanki Valley Ranch. Let's get started. For the best wings of your life, you're going to want to brine them in some buttermilk. We're going to combine 4 cups of buttermilk, salt, harissa seasoning, garlic powder, and paprika. Give that all a whisk until it's nice and combined. Now we're going to take our whole chicken wings and we are going to separate them into flats and drumettes and remove the wing tips. We're going to place the flats and drumettes in the buttermilk brine and we are going to let these sit undisturbed for about 4 to 6 hours or up to overnight.
Wow, I feel like garbage.
Next step for the best wings of your life is your dry rub. We are going to use some all-purpose flour, brown sugar, smoked paprika, chili powder, Kashmiri red chili for that beautiful color, harissa seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, and salt. And we are going to whisk this together until everything is evenly distributed, and we're going to set this aside. For your wing glaze, you're going to start combining your chopped and de-seeded bell peppers, your chopped and de-seeded jalapenos, your finely minced garlic, your apple cider vinegar, and you are going to mix this together and bring it to a low simmer. We're also going to add in about a tablespoon of water, and then we're going to add in our spices. We're using Kashmiri red chili, chili powder, and salt. Make sure to stir occasionally so that your mix doesn't burn. Once it's nice and bubbly, we're going to add in our liquid smoke along with our sugar and our honey, and we are going to stir this together to make sure everything is nicely incorporated. We're going to bring this to a heavy boil, and we're going to let this cook for a little while. After about 2 minutes, we're going to use an immersion blender and try and get this as smooth as possible. Don't stress if there's little pieces of skin from the bell pepper or the jalapenos. That's normal. They're not going to break down all the way. Additionally, to help this thicken, we're going to make a cornstarch slurry with a little bit of cornstarch and a little bit of water, and then we're going to add that to our sauce and continue to let this cook down. Make sure you're tasting and seasoning appropriately, and if you would like this hotter, feel free to add in some spicier peppers. I made this for the most mild palate. I personally don't think jalapenos are very hot, but I don't know what everyone's spice tolerances are, so do as you will. Set that aside to cool. We're going to work on our Githyanki Valley Ranch, or ranch if you are deaf. To do this, we're going to make our own mayo. Do not be afraid. It is very easy. We're going to combine 2 eggs, a clove of garlic, about a teaspoon or so of lemon juice. You can just eyeball it, a pinch of sugar, a pinch of salt, and a dollop of Dijon mustard. And we are going to use an immersion blender to bring that all together and make it nice and creamy. Now, the magic mayo moment happens here. We're going to add in about a cup of olive oil. I mean, if you're feeling it, you could use a little more neutral oil for flavor. And we're going to use that same immersion blender and work our way from the bottom to the top, and voila, is going to emulsify into a nice, flavorful, garlicky mayo. Set that aside. In a bowl, we're going to combine about a 1/4 cup of creme fraiche along with about 2 tablespoons of that same homemade mayonnaise, and we're going to mix that together until it's nice and smooth. To this, we're going to add a tablespoon of fresh chives finely minced and any excess on the cutting board. The same thing with the fresh dill, 2 tablespoons of fresh dill finely minced and any excess, along with 1 tablespoon of fresh parsley finely minced, along with any excess on the cutting board. To this, we're going to add a teaspoon of fresh lemon juice along with a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Mix that together, and then we're going to add in our final seasonings. To this, add a 1/2 teaspoon garlic powder, a 1/2 teaspoon onion powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon MSG, not optional, and about a 1/4 teaspoon or pinch of sugar. Mix that together with a spoon, and then make sure you taste for seasoning. If it needs any additional salt or sugar, just add in like a tiny sprinkle at a time. Once you're happy with how that turns out, cover and set in the fridge until ready to use. Now, we're going to remove the wings from their buttermilk bath. We're going to transfer the dry rub to a sealable gallon Ziploc bag. You could use a paper bag, but I just used what I had. And we're going to use a paper towel to blot dry the wing pieces, and before we transfer them to the gallon Ziploc bag, make sure that is really nice and sealed, and we are going to shake, shake, shake until these are completely covered and there are no wet patches of wing remaining and all of the dry rub is evenly distributed. Spray your cooking racks with a little bit of non-stick spray and then transfer your drums and flats to the cooking racks on foil-lined baking sheets. We're going to make sure they're nice and evenly spaced, spritz them with a little bit of that same cooking oil, and then we are going to bake these in the oven. Sorry about the missing footage. I was very ill and didn't realize my camera was not recording. So what you're going to do is you're going to cook the wings for 30 minutes, remove them from the oven, flip them over so that the other side can crisp up, and you're going to glaze the wings. You're going to bake them for about 15 minutes. You're going to flip them again, glaze the wings on the other side, and then you're going to bake that for another like 5 to 7 minutes until the sauce is very sticky. You're going to remove that from the oven. You're going to brush with remaining sauce and then let cool slightly.
I am devastated you cannot smell these. They smell so good.
5 minutes later.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. Look at this. Oh, the pairing is gonna be amazing. All right, let's try one. Let's try you. This little flat. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Okay. A little bit of the ranch. Incredible. Yeah. 10 out of 10, no notes. Ugh, 10 out of 10. No notes. Dev, I hope you like this. This slaps so hard. Oh my gosh. The ranch, so good. But anyway, cheers to you and cheers to Laezel.
Now, Astarion is incredibly high maintenance, but also, in my opinion, a total softie. So we are going to make a very soft bergamot souffle with mixed berry coulis. Let's get started. In a sauce pot, we're going to combine 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, a tablespoon of sugar, a 1/4 cup of pomegranate juice, a tablespoon of water, 1½ cups of strawberries washed and chopped, and 1½ cups of raspberries washed and chopped over medium heat, and we're going to let this come to a simmer. We're going to let this cook over medium heat for about 5 minutes to let the strawberries soften up. Once the coulis is nice and bubbly and the strawberries have softened, we're going to take our immersion blender and we are going to blend this up. We want it as smooth as possible. Now, there will still be seeds, but a coulis is nice and strained. So once we give it some more time on the stove, maybe 2 minutes, we're going to strain this through a fine mesh sieve and press all of the sauce out of the seeds. We want to leave as little of the sauce behind in the strainer as possible. Set this aside to cool until you're ready to use. Also, this is great atop waffles or pancakes. Let's prep our souffle dishes. So I'm going to take some softened butter on a basting brush and I am going to brush the butter in upwards strokes around the rim of the souffle ramekin, and then I'm going to take some granulated sugar and I am going to roll it around the bottom and the sides of the ramekin. Now let's work on our souffle. We are going to melt 3 tablespoons of butter over medium-low heat, and then once that's melted, we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of flour. Whisk these together with either a small whisk or a fork, breaking up any clumps of flour and allowing the flour to cook out for about 2 to 3 minutes. We are making a roux to help thicken the souffle batter. Once the roux goes from this color to a nice caramel color, we are going to remove it and let it cool to room temperature while we work on the remainder of our souffle base. We're going to take some whole milk, our bergamot extract, and our vanilla bean powder. We're going to whisk this together over medium heat. We're going to heat the milk until it's just below boiling. Now, for those of us in the US, that is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of us elsewhere, that is 100 degrees Celsius. So just below then, nice simmer. We're going to, at that point, remove it from the heat, then add the roux in, and then we're going to bring it back to the heat and whisk until everything thickens up. It's going to get kind of nice and pasty. At this point, we're going to add in our granulated sugar, and we are going to whisk this really well to make sure everything's evenly incorporated. We're going to remove the mixture from the heat, and we're going to add in our beaten egg yolks. Now, the egg yolks will not scramble the way that egg whites can, so you can cool this a little bit, but I've made this a couple times since, and I found that you can really just kind of put them in right off the stove and they're not going to scramble. Make sure everything is really evenly mixed, and then we're going to take it back to the stove and we're going to heat this up a little bit just to help cook those egg yolks. Now we're going to transfer our hot souffle base to a bowl on the counter. We're going to let this cool completely before we move on to the next step. Once the hot base is cool, we're going to take the egg whites and we are going to beat them until they have stiff peaks. Once your egg whites have reached stiff peaks like this, careful not to overbeat them, we're going to incorporate that into our souffle base in thirds. We're going to incorporate 1/3 of the egg whites into the souffle base by stirring it in. Then we're going to take the next third and fold it in, and then finally the last third and fold it in. We want to be very gentle so that we don't deflate really any of the egg whites. We want this to have a lot of lift. That's where we're going to get the lift for our souffles. Now it's time to transfer our souffle batter to the ramekin. So we're going to take about a 1/2 cup at a time and transfer it to each souffle ramekin. Make sure to fill it 3/4 of the way up. They're going to place these on a baking tray and bake them for 25 to 30 minutes depending on preference for doneness. Now you'll notice I have a different shirt on here, and that's because I remade these the following day. I wasn't super happy with how they photographed. They fell quite a bit after I plated them, so I decided to remake them again and photograph them, just being completely honest here. So you're going to take your souffle, you're going to put that on a cute little dish. We're going to arrange some strawberries and raspberries, and then we're going to pour a healthy drizzle of this coulis over the top, and there you go. I absolutely recommend that you make these. These were so delicious and tasty. Everyone loved them. Practice does make perfect though, so if they don't turn out at first, that's okay. Moving on to Shadowhearts. Now, to me, she reads as a wine and cheese girly, so I thought let's make her something she could put together in the forest with some foraged mushrooms and herbs. To do this, we're going to caramelize some onions. So in a large flat skillet, we're going to heat up some olive oil and we are going to caramelize our onions. Now this takes a good amount of time. I am not using the hack that uses water to help caramelize the onions faster. Instead, I am just going to caramelize these over an hour. Look how buttery they look. That's just onions and olive oil and thyme. We're going to remove that from the stove, and then we're going to work on the remainder of our mix. We're going to put down some more olive oil, and then we are going to put in our shallot. We're going to cook that until it's nice and soft. At that point, we're going to add in like 8 cloves of finely minced garlic. It's a lot of garlic, but I feel like Shadowheart would do that just to spite Astarion, and you know, because it tastes good. We're going to add in a little salt, and then we're going to add in our mushrooms that we've washed and sliced. Now we're going to cook these mushrooms down as they continue to release a lot of water. We're going to cook them until they've shrunk by at least half. At this point, we're going to add in a little bit of sherry. I added about 2 splashes of sherry to help deglaze the bottom of the pan. You're going to notice a lot of buildup there, or fond. We want that flavor to go into the mix. We put atop the Brie. Once everything is really nice and soft and the mushrooms are like 1/4 of their original size, we're going to add in our herbs. I just threw in a couple tablespoons of fresh chopped thyme and a couple tablespoons of fresh chopped rosemary. At this point, my kitchen smelled amazing. We're going to continue to cook this down. I added a little bit of salt and some smoked paprika for a little oomph, and we're going to continue to let these mushrooms cook down while we score the top of our Brie. We're going to make diagonal cuts about 1/4 of an inch down into the top of the Brie, and then we're going to flip it around and go along the opposite way. We're going to have a couple diamond cuts, and then we're going to add in our caramelized onions to our mushroom mix. And when I tell you this is the best my kitchen has smelled in a minute, oh my gosh, I mean it. We're going to make sure all of this is incorporated. I added a little bit more sherry because things were starting to stick to the bottom of the pan again. And then we're just going to make sure everything is nice and gooey and incorporated. We're going to then take about a third of the mixture, put it on the bottom of our baking dish. We're going to put the brie on top, and then we're going to put the remainder of it on the very top. So you can just pack it in there. It'll be totally fine. Pop a lid on that dish and pop that in the oven for about 25 minutes to get really nice and hot and bubbly. While that's in the oven, we're going to work on our crostini. We're going to take a baguette and slice that on a diagonal in about 1/4 inch thick slices. Now, when I say I want garlic crostini, I mean garlic crostini. So we're going to take garlic infused olive oil and brush that onto the tops and bottoms of our crostini. And then we are going to sprinkle some fresh cracked sea salt, and we're going to pop that in the oven once the cheese comes out on broil. Keep a close eye on that because this does not take long. We're going to remove these from the oven, and then we're going to take a garlic clove cut in half on all of the crostini, and look at the cheese. Look at it. Look at the mushrooms.
Oh yeah.
Look at it.
Oh, that is gooey and cheesy.
I could eat this for days. Listen for the crunch.
I could eat this whole thing. My stomach would not like me, but I could eat this whole thing. But oh boy, it's tasty. This tasty.
Make this, you won't regret it. Last but certainly not least, the apple and maple custard pie with bourbon caramel for Corinna the squirrel. Let's get started. All right, now you can make this far ahead. We're going to work on that bourbon caramel in a sauce pot. We're going to combine our sugar and our water. We're going to stir this before we turn on the heat. The reason for that is you don't want to disturb the sugar mix while it's heating up. Otherwise, the water will dissolve and you'll be left with sugar again. Once this turns into a really nice, like a deep copper penny color, we are going to remove this from the heat and we are going to add in our heavy cream. Now you want to be very careful about this because this is extremely hot and it will splatter. It'll clump up a little bit on your metal whisk. That's okay. Keep working it and it'll slowly dissolve back into the caramel. Once you've added the heavy cream and have mixed it in a bit, we're going to add in our softened butter and we're going to mix that in until it's completely melted. At this point, we're going to add in our vanilla and our bourbon and our salt. We're going to whisk this together and then we are going to put this in a glass container to cool. Do not use plastic for this. It will melt. It's very, very hot. Just going forward, any hot caramels, sugars, let them cool in a glass container. We are going to then work on our pie crust. We are going to take our flour that's spooned and leveled along with our salt and our sugar, and we're going to whisk that together with a fork to make sure that's evenly combined before we add our cold butter. Not frozen, just cold, like out of the refrigerator. You're going to massage it in with your fingers until there are no large chunks of butter left, and when you squeeze it together, it holds its shape kind of like wet sand. At this point, we know it's ready to add in our water. So we're going to take a couple tablespoons of ice water. I typically start with about 3 or 4, and we're going to work that in with our hands. I like to use my hands for this so I can make sure and feel that the dough is hydrated and not rely on like a spatula. We're going to add enough water, maybe 5 to 6 tablespoons total, so that it comes together in a nice dough. We want it smooth enough that we can roll it together into a ball kind of like this, and then we can divide it into 2. We can wrap them in plastic wrap. I couldn't find mine, so I improvised and used a gallon Ziploc bag. Hey, Ziploc, please sponsor me. And then we're going to set that in the fridge until ready to use. Now, I missed it, but we're going to roll it out until it's like 1/8 of an inch thick and use that to put inside our pie dish. What I'm rolling out here is the pie crust for the braid that's going to go around the outside of the pie crust. So we're going to roll this out really, really nice and long. It's going to be really nice and thick. What I do for this is I roll it out, I fold it in half, and then I roll it out again, and that makes long pieces of pie crust. Now, we do not want to braid with wonky edges like this. It will not look cutesy. So we are going to trim off the excess, and we're going to then cut this into 3 strips. So just make 2 incisions all the way down. It takes a lot of focus. It'll be fine. And then we're going to braid the pie crust. Just braid it. Do the best you can. Once we have our braid and it looks somewhat okay, we're going to take that and press it into the pie crust around the top of the pie. Does that make sense? We're going to get a cute little basket. Then we're going to pierce the bottom of our pie crust with a fork, put our pie weight down, and then put a pie shield around the edges. While that par bakes for about 20 minutes, we're going to work on the custard filling. We're going to combine our whole milk, our heavy cream, and our eggs, and we are going to whisk this together until the eggs are all broken up. At this point, we're going to add in maple sugar and maple extract along with vanilla powder and some pumpkin pie spice, and we're going to whisk this together until everything is nice and even. Additionally, we're going to peel and slice some Honeycrisp apples. I found that these don't have a ton of water in them. And then it's time to panic because the braid fell off the edge of the pie. We're going to pull it out of the oven before it's done par baking to try and fix this and smush the edges of the pie back the way they should. This is what happens in my kitchen, honestly. I don't know why it slid this way, but it did. But we fixed it and it turned out great. So this is how I fixed it. We're going to put this back in the oven to finish baking. Remove the pie weight, stagger the apples in the pie for aesthetic reasons, and then top with maple custard. We're going to bake this until the custard reads about 76 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Brush the edges with egg wash. It'll be nice and golden. You don't want to overbake custard, otherwise it'll curdle and split. It won't taste bad, but the texture will not be good. Once that cools, we're going to top this with bourbon caramel, and we're going to just smack it against the counter once or twice to try and drive up any excess bubbles. Now we're going to work on candied nuts. We're going to combine our brown sugar and the remainder of our maple sugar in a pan along with some water and a splash of bourbon to try and bring all the flavors together. I wanted this dish to be really cohesive. We're also going to add in some cinnamon and nutmeg to bring in those seasonal spices, and then we're going to add in some pecans and walnuts. We're going to toss this together. Once everything is evenly coated, remove to a parchment-lined baking tray and let cool completely. Now, I was really concerned that this would just look beige, and I didn't want that. So we're going to cut out a super cute little maple leaf out of the remaining pie crust. And we're going to brush this with tinted egg wash. Now, this is an idea that I had. I was not sure if it was going to work out. So I made an egg wash with 1 egg and a little bit of water, and I divided it into 2, and I dyed the first part yellow. Brushed that over the pie crust, did a little bit of orange because we want like a cute little fall maple leaf moment. Okay, so I just tinted this into fall colors. I reserved some yellow to blend it all out, and I baked it, and look at it. It's perfect.
It's time to assemble. I am obsessed. I'm realizing I should have painted the edges, but it is what it is. But look, it's shiny like a leaf. Oh, it looks so good. Okay.
Pardon the outburst, I was just really excited. So we're just gonna, make this look cute. We're gonna put some nuts here. We're gonna pop the leaf down. We're gonna put some nuts around the outside. Corinna's a squirrel. Squirrels love nuts. And then we're just, we're gonna make it look cute, and there she is. But now, to destroy this thing of beauty, to taste it, it's my privilege, honestly.
That's so good. That is so good. This is a winner for sure.
I highly recommend that you make these, and on that note, I am doing a giveaway. I am not sure if you're aware of the devastation that Hurricane Helene has had on the Southeast, especially in North Carolina and Florida and Georgia. If you're a subscriber, I always end my videos with reminding you to take care of yourselves and do something nice for someone else. I made special edition prints for the Baldur's Gate 3 voice actors of their respective recipes. I know I don't have the largest following, but If any of my followers are willing to donate towards Hurricane Helene recovery, and if you are looking for reputable donation places, I'll link those down below. I will email you a copy of all of the recipes in the special edition prints. I just need you to email my Underdark Sellers email with proof of a donation, and I will get that sent to you. I know I don't have the largest following, but I believe that if we come together and try as a group, we can make a difference. So please, if you are able, please support Hurricane Helene recovery and email me. And if you have been impacted by this, I am so, so sorry. My heart goes out to you. My thoughts and prayers are with you, and my efforts are with you. So please know that you are loved and welcomed here, and that you're not alone, and that the Underdark Sellers table is big enough for everybody. That said, adventurers, please take care of yourselves. Things are so stressful right now. Please look out for your neighbor. Do something to help someone else this week. And I think that's it. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We'd love to have you. Like the video, ring the bell, and I will see you next time, adventurers. Bye-bye.